In 1988, I went to Swaziland. We had a meeting at the Happy Valley. As it's called, yes, the Happy Valley. It's a nice place in Swaziland, and this meeting there, or conference is there. Now, one of the things, it was a languages meeting. Oh yes, the person I was talking about is Ian Hacking. Ian Hacking.
Okay.
They study quite statisticians. Yes, it's Ian Hacking. Now we are in this place. I'm the only statistician there. This is a meeting of linguists. Now they ask me, hey, what are you doing here as a statistician? I mean, this meeting is of people who are in languages. So I said, no. Languages are very an artifact of statistics. That's what language is. It wraps things in such a way that you can summarize and provide insights. So there's a man there, a white man, who is a linguist, a Bantu linguist, and then he's presenting. And as he presents, he says, the Venda language is the most connected amongst language. In fact, it is the root language in the Bantu languages, Venda. But you know that the pecking order in South Africa has always been the Zulu, and the Venda have been at the bottom.
Correct.
So we have been living that kind of life where people who are Venda would not say they are Venda openly. I haven't seen it in the statistics of the censuses. I tried to see whether this has permeated there as well. So then I've just presented results by language group. And I followed that now, and the evidence is very clear. That the Venda are the most achieving as a population group.
Academically?
In terms of progression ratios, they're much higher than any of the Bantu, the Sotho, and the Zulu.
This is academic and economic.
It's if you think about people who have progressed, they are the highest amongst the Bantu. The Bantu. They come after the whites immediately, and the issue is about the ability of their language across. And again, it goes back to culture. That the Venda as a language, it's not surprising that Marwala is the president or principal of the UN university. So the current census data, the previous censuses, when I analyze them by language, Venda comes tops.
You're talking of adaptability.
No.
Once you learn Venda.
Once you speak Venda.
Okay.
The Venda speaker doesn't have a problem in speaking Nguni, in Shona, in Sotho.
Yes.
And when language captures your precepts and your perceptions and everything, so they have a cross-cutting view of life.
Because of that foundation.
Because of that foundation, of that language foundation. So
someone else would interpret what you're saying as we should be teaching all South Africans, regardless of race, Venda as a base language because it assists them in maybe cognitive reasoning or whatever the case may be.
I would say so. I would recommend that.
And this is coming from a Sotho man, because before people think you're biased.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that shows, there was this Venda guy in my office who was running the human resources capacity building, Professor Ntange. So, we ran this program of recruiting people as interns. And, so I received them, 50, 100 of them. So I asked each one to introduce themselves by name. And where have they studied? And so, yeah. Now I see this guy's from Limpopo and the Venda, and I have this person who said again. So I go back to my office. I say, hey man, this Venda man, no.
Keeps hiring his own people.
His own
Aye,
people,
Baba. Nepotism.
Nepotism. But when these guys start, see, hey, there's a difference here. Then when you see this in the general Venda population, you then understand. Yes. So for me, a compulsory language based on this would be Venda, because then it allows you to cut across all our languages.
One of the things we don't speak about, so I believe that language is the most powerful force on the planet, personally. And I could go on a 30 to 1 hour rant explaining why, because I sometimes say things like language is God. Some people say spelling, witchcraft spelling, the power of what you do with language. And some people have even spoken about how language can help you understand maths.
Absolutely.
Easier. I mean, the way we count, the way the Chinese count in Mandarin helps them, the way they put numbers together versus...
Yes, yeah.
We're not speaking enough. We speak about coding today, that children should be learning to code, which is a language. But we're not speaking about language in its usefulness. Because even when I thought of learning Swahili, I came to realize that Swahili for the African continent is like learning isiZulu in South Africa. It's good to connect with the people, but it's not commercial. Commercially, you're speaking English, French, maybe Arabic. And just those conversations to figure out. So I'm fascinated by what you're saying. When I raised Steve Kompella's line, I was raising it in this context, and I apologize for moving from language. We speak about unemployment. We sing unemployment every year, every election campaign. And then I've seen some of the data of income. And I've wondered if it's intentional or accidental that we speak unemployment rate and we are so obsessed versus income rate, because that changes your entire view. Number one, we can employ everyone in South Africa. I could tell people now, if you want jobs, I'll give you jobs. But I'll pay you 100 Rand per month. I actually want unemployment to end. You're unemployed.
Yeah.
Here's 100 Rand. No, but it's not enough. You said you want unemployment. You said you want the land. Here's land. Here's 100 Rand. Versus income, where even if people are employed, you look at the income. Even if people are unemployed, you still look at the income. And the conversation should be, let's rather focus. And look, we're also still focusing on money versus something else, because money is meant to be a means to an end. But if we were to move from the thought of unemployment rates to income rates, we might have a richer conversation. And that becomes, again, stats bikini. That, okay, we see the unemployment rates, but there's something here we're not discussing, because even the unemployed, or even the employed rather, are still complaining. How can it be you have a job, and how do we resolve that?
Well, livelihoods. I would argue that we have to really talk about livelihoods, which look at the totality. And this is where I am inspired by the multidimensional poverty indices. And as part of Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, we've been working on the multidimensional poverty indices for the longest. That has enriched significantly the discussions around well-being, welfare, economics, and so on. And you bring unemployment into the picture, you bring income into the picture, you bring living conditions in the picture, and then you talk about how do we resolve this. Now, I've been advocating, and I wish to insist, if the Minister of Finance, his budget speech, the President is going to talk about inputs in his speech. Now, Traore speaks about what he committed to in the 3 years, and what he has delivered, and what he commits to in the future.
Ibrahim Traore,
yes,
Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso. When you listen to his speech, it's real on outcomes. When we listen to our president's speech, he's in inputs most of the time.
Yes.
And it even fails to refer to what has been achieved on the inputs. The Ministers of Finance speech, it's on inputs in terms of the budgets that have been allocated.
Mr. Enoch Kotongwan.
There's nothing on outcomes. I mean, outcomes are farther and farther. And it's a budget speech of year on year, instead of saying, what is the horizon? What are we going to achieve?
Yes.
How will the South African child be like? And how am I going to be held to account? How I wish that the speeches of these people on the multidimensional poverty indices.
Yes.
That the joint index of this will grow by X or by Y. Colombia's president, Santos, had a 50-year war with the FARC. They resolved that for 4-year war by agreeing on the multidimensional poverty indices that will be reduced. It's exactly what we are talking about. How do we agree on the things that are material, are touchable and everything, and can be actually mean something?
Yes.
And they can be measured at lower levels of geography.
Yes.
We don't. Yet Stats SA produces all those. That data is available. And I am arguing that the Red Book of the Treasury should not only be about the GDP, prices, exports, imports, balance of payments, debt to GDP ratio and all that, but it must have a set of multidimensional poverty indices that tell us what is happening in the livelihoods of South Africans.